Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Asif. To all the guests who have joined us online, a very warm welcome from TSDSI. I'm Bindu Srivastav, your host for the evening. We will just begin in a short while. We are waiting for our chief guest, Honorable Mr. K. Rajaraman, Secretary Telecom, to arrive in the hall. Thank you. Shall we start? Yeah. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining the TSDSI Hall of Fame 22 Awards 22 award ceremony. We are very honored to have Dr. Kumar Sivarajan, the founding chair of TSDSI, with us today, along with Mr. K. Rajaram, Secretary Telecom. May I invite Dr. Kumar Sivarajan to kindly welcome Mr. Rajaraman and make the opening remarks. Thank you, sir. No, wait. Okay. We felicitate Mr. Rajaraman.
It's a pleasure to welcome Sri Rajaraman, who's Secretary Devotee, who's kindly agreed to spend the evening with us. And welcome to all of you as well. I'd like to take a few minutes to recount the history of TSDSI. I won't bore you, I assure you. So we're almost at the 10th year. We started in 2014. So I think next year should be a big event, 10th year. Throughout our first 10 years, we've had a lot of support from the Government of India, especially DOT. Successive secretaries have extended the support to us. And I think DOT has gone out of its way, I would say, to encourage us, to ensure we were successful in ITU with our 5GI efforts. We always reached out. We have trouble, we call DOT and say, please help us get votes in ITU. And then in 3GPP, where also we could get our 5GI through, which required a lot of help from government and DOT. And is this working okay? Am I okay? And then on the other side, I think the government recognized that we need Indian infrastructure providers. Can we make 5G in India? That was the question, right? So I think they answered it by saying, okay, let's get the IITs to develop 5G indigenously. Whether it gets deployed or in that same shape and form is a different matter, but it showed that we could do it. It's almost the equivalent of saying ISRO, go launch a satellite, like Aryabhatta. So I view these 5G efforts that were made with a bunch of academic institutions as showing the way that you could make. And now it will be a catalyst for industry to make it. Because once you know it can be done, it's like this. The first time you go to Everest, that is hard. And after that, hundreds of people scale Everest. So I think we're indebted to DOT for funding that kind of an effort. So now we are in the 10th year, and we should make big plans. Where do we go from here? And I think that's part of the panel discussion, so I don't want to steal the thunder from that. So welcome all of you. And now I hand it over to Pamela for the next talk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for setting the context. And before we start with the main ceremony of today, we would like to conduct a panel discussion on achieving leadership in digital technology standardization. We have as panelists Mr. D.K. Agarwal from BSNL. May I request Mr. Agarwal to please join us on the dais. Mr. Satish Chamadagni from Reliance Jio. You can sit anywhere. Mr. Sanjeev Arora from Vodafone Idea. Ms. Revati from Wireless Planning Cell. Mr. Abdul Qayyum from Telecom Engineering Center. Dr. Kumar Sivarajan, who will be representing TSDSI today. And the panel will be moderated by Ms. Pamela Kumar, Director General TSDSI. All the folks, experts are already very well known in the community, so there is no need of introducing them. I'll hand over to Pamela for starting the panel discussion.
Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us for this event, and we thought that we may use this opportunity to, bring the standards associated bodies like, obviously our telecom service providers to tell us how important standards are, and TEC, WPC, and of course TSDSI to help with the conversation that we started actually in the December timeframe. We started a conversation on developing a common roadmap for standardization in India, and while we are working on this, we thought that it would be good to share some of that with you. So in that context, I will very quickly share a couple of slides. Can somebody bring up the slides, please? So what we found while we were doing this study, I can probably go through them while they're bringing up the slides, that we realized that the contributions from India in global standards were, in the sub 1% range. And as we looked into those, so from out of 90,000, and I made a mistake during the prep meeting in the morning today, out of 90,000 standards, contributions at 3GPP, we found that around 400 were from India, right? And when we did a deeper dive, we realized that only 20% of these were from Indian origin organizations. So there are organizations which are not of Indian origin, which were contributing 80% of these standards. A slightly different view emerged in 1M2M, where actually CDOT has been one of the big pioneers from India. But then 1M2M is small, right? Out of 492, we have 50 contributions, or out of 600. So overall, globally also, it's in the early stages. It's like 3GPP, the first 3GPP release that went to deployment was release 8. 1M2M is working on release 4 today, right? So that's the comparison. So early days, you can get in and you start and there's a possibility we can become bigger there. So this is one data point. Then quickly we go on to the next slide. I don't want to take too much time on this. Then we started doing a deep dive on other countries which have come into standards late. And of course, our neighbor, our big neighbor is the one who's the latest entrant into the world of standards. So you see that the cumulative data between 2000 to 2019 shows that they are at number 1 in terms of the number of contributions that they have made in these 2 decades. But then on the right hand side, you see in the bottom chart, it shows that in 2000 they were at 0 standards. From 2000 to 2000, I don't know how visible that graph is. From 2000 to 2007 or 8, they were, around 7 days when they started contributing, and came to a few thousand contributions, and now they have grown exponentially to the point that on the top you see the IPR, they almost have 27% of the patents, the SEPs in 3GPP. So that's a phenomenal journey. We tried to model that from an India perspective. On the next slide, please. What will it take for us to do something like this? And this is what we presented to the secretary and tried to build the roadmap around. And we see that to go from this 0.4% to 4% is what we expect by 2030. So it's a multi-generation journey. And it takes a lot of focused effort and investment and resources to get there. So that's the message that I want to leave to start the panel with. And what we will do is we'll have 2 rounds of discussions. So moving on to round 1. The first question is lessons learned what are the lessons learned from some of the successes in standardization and the current challenges? So this question is geared to the telecom service providers, and I would request Mr. Agarwal to probably start with his perspective on this. Please. Okay, mic is there. Okay.
Hello. So, very good evening, sir. Thank you for being part of this TSDSI. I am associated with TCI from last 5 years. So, sir, basically standardization is a concept where we can improve our efficiency and contribution toward the economy of a country. Sir, if some technology develop, it takes its own time. So we have the journey of India has been started recently. We have not been in the, as rightly said, especially the this SCPs are there. Those are being used. Those are the standard enabled patents are there. So in India, our contribution is 0.4% now. But the near our country is China, it is around 27%. The reason is being that whatever the money comes out of this, it will go to them, whether the manufacturing is done any part of the world. So that was the thing, sir. Now, standardization can serve also the accelerator and change the industry, promote innovations and uptake of the new digital technologies and spread knowledge through certification. Sir, we expect from Government of India that how we can increase our partnership, our contribution to the ITUs, especially that we have to contrive a strong and robust industry academia collaboration through funding them, support in regulation, support in the promotion of their product to utilize. If somebody is making the product and we are not using, what is the advantage? So that is the one thing. Like see in the Korea, they are using only Korean make equipment, whether it is cheaper or costlier. Now as we know that most of our talent and humans are being used by other MNCs, and they have used our human capital and make their assets, and they are earning out of it. While Indians are working as a high paid labor, but their IPR and the ownership lies with them. So basically, ultimately, money is being earned by them out of the work which have been done by India. Most of R&D center they have put up in India, but again IPR and other things are in their part. Now presently, India is being seen as basically consumer market rather than it is technology provider market. So what they are doing, they are making monies and taking leadership in the technology area. And they are telling that this has been developed by them because they are having the IPRs. Now we have to inculcate a system that the present thought of making monies by the all stakeholders. What is happening? Any businessman, he wants that I want to make some money, whether it is costly or whatever the economy of scale or cheaper solution is there, he is providing. But we have to see that by creating a long-term strategy, a whole including innovators, promoters, sellers, and end users, India has to fix a vision of around 10 to 15% SCPs in Indian owned entity. That is important because there are some companies, those who have opened companies in India, but their main companies out of India. Although they are getting some, although they are serving in India, but the money and the profit is being transferred to other country. So I would like in that regard that we have to inculcate a system like राष्ट्रीय जागरूकता कि हमको कैसे भी सामान चाहे इंडिया में सस्ता हो या महंगा हो इंडियन ही यूज करना है और उसके लिए कोई भी लॉ विल नॉट एनेबल बिकॉज अगर हम लॉ को एनेबल करते हैं तो WTO की TWTT है उसके वो रेस्ट्रिक्शंस होते हैं तो हमको यही करना है कि हमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इंडियन मेक सामान यूज करना है. लाइक इन BSNL, we have been allowed to utilize the Atmanirbhar Bharat equipment. BSNL has done proper testing, and soon we will be placing the order. And in next, means we got some equipment, it is under development. And in next 1 year, you will see that Indian equipment, Indian ITDM equipment will be using, and India becomes the 5th country in the world which will be making the 4G equipment. So in this regard, I would like to say something. I extend my gratitude to the organizer. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks a lot for those insights. I think we will take you in the second round of questions for the. So now I would move over, in the first round itself. So what are so I think Mr. Agarwal has set a very good context on what are some of the lessons learned from the other leaders in standardization. So what are the best practices from your perspective? So Mr. Abdul Qayyum, you have been representing TEC here, and TEC has been the stalwart in standards, and you've seen it very closely. So can you tell us what are the best practices that other countries which are driving standards that we can learn and we can emulate?
Thank you very much. Since last 2 years, under the tremendous guidance provided by our Honorable Secretary T, particularly if I see in Telecom Engineering Center, we are currently working on more than 100 standards in IT itself. And we are not actually very much alive in IEEE. That is also being enabled, and hopefully we are going to contribute from this year onward. In the 3GPP also we are not having much presence, but from this year onward we are going to have a serious presence there. My experience in TEC has been that it is not really required to have a very deep knowledge in manufacturing for contributions. Field are open in every aspect. For example, quality of service. Quality of service, it is so important, but what I find, there is hardly any presence of service provider. Service providers, I don't find them any presence in contributing to building up any quality related standards. When TRI issues any guideline, they will be there to oppose it. But whereas when the standards were being made, if they have contributed, the standardization body could have understood what is the problem with the service provider, how those things can be taken into account. For example, I'm just quoting one recent recommendation by TRI, that is digital connectivity rating of buildings. Now it has come. And going through their consultation recommendations, what is lacking in that, and that is going to pitch the service providers. There is no process defined how the rating is going to be done, but everything else is defined, what functional structure, how the structures will be formed, but actually how are you going to build a matrix? So what will happen when something comes? And when the rating agency rates something, then there will be opposition to it. Why this is happening? Because you have not understood what TRI was doing. You have not participated. You have not given input. You have not suggested a matrix. And that was the time. Again, when TRI started consultation, I took the information from the consultation. I took it to the ITU to start a new study on that, so that by the time consultation is over and when we have to define a process and a matrix, we should be having a standards. So hopefully that was agreed by ITU, and they actually agreed to complete the work in a very short time, and this is going to be approved by in the September 2023. So this is one of the example which I felt that though that concern with us and we have knowledge, who is having better knowledge than the operator themselves? They can really very well contribute to it. But I find I wrote to even TRI, I wrote to the operators requesting them please provide the input, because this information will be going to ITU, and you'll have a good standard which you can really use and for the betterment of the network. But that was not coming. So this is in many other fields where people are facing problem. If they can actually come with the problem itself, problem statement itself, there will be standards. They can come to the TSDSI, they can come to the TC. We are all there to really handhold in any aspect. And the one more aspect which I think is we are missing, we are comparatively quite matured in optical development of optical system, whereas there is much hype in the mobile wireless system, but we are not taking any work to ITU in optical domain. And ITU study group 15 is the most productive study group. Most of the standards that is going in development of the equipment, that is coming from ITU only. It is not 3GPP, it is not any other organization, it is ITU only. But we are not contributing to that, though we have a lot of knowledge in that. So that is one area where we can have a lot of standards in optical domain from our manufacturers and system developers. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think you can sense, his anguish on how many opportunities there are for standardization, but we all need to bootstrap and rise to the occasion and leverage these opportunities. Over to Ms. Revati to share the WPC perspective, because they've been engaged in this for, since the beginning. And India is one of the top 10 contributors to ITU in terms of the financial contribution we make at ITU.
Thank you, madam. I'll continue with my colleague, Mr. Kayyum, expressions. I'll just slightly detour to spectrum side. What he's telling is right. Even the TSDSI contributions. I've been associated very closely with them when we started working on the spectrum, what is it? Standards roadmap, standardization roadmap. Then we were seeing what is the gap. And then why we are talking about only 5G, 6G standards. We are well ahead in the space. And what happened? We have startups, Dhruv and Agnikul and all. They are making so many nano satellites and communication satellites. That standards we are not at all touching. And ITU study group 4A and 4C, 4B, they talk about the standards. India can contribute very well there. Then we started analyzing why the startups are not coming into it. It's the funding. Because everybody knows the benefit of standardization, but somewhere I think government has to fund, encourage the people, because it is not directly giving the benefit. You get the patents and all, you may get benefit after 20 years. For that, the government has to give a push. And as he already told, under the dynamic leadership of our Secretary T, we recently had a discussions with IEEE chapters and all standardization bodies. I think still we have to push from the government side. Having said that, recently I attended, one lecture on this broadcast engineers symposium. It was a big, this thing happened at Pragati Maidan. They do every year. And they were talking more about standards. And National Broadcasters Association of America, they were
they've sent their input. India has to encourage more government, consumer bodies, professional organizations, industry, academia, and other stakeholders to engage with standards development organizations as partners and create standardization solutions to support the national objectives. Key to such partnerships being their participation in standards formulation require commitment of the stakeholders, especially particularly the government and industry. In Western countries, the pool of experts available is quite large with respect to India. We need a larger participation specifically by the domain experts. Also there, the industries have a separate department for standardization with a dedicated team to address the issues related to standards development. There, the standards are industry driven rather than requiring a push. So we are in the push mode, right? We have to move to the pull mode. Okay. Rather than requiring a push from SDOs. Further, we need a robust IT infrastructure to support our efforts. Further, they, like our Western counterparts, participation of industry is solicited with the motive of long-term benefits rather than short-term profits. So standards is a long-term game. You have to realize that. Also, we need to invest our energy in long-term goals and future and emerging technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, and quantum. I think this was very well articulated. So we'll move on to the second round of questions very quickly, and we'll pass it on to Satish Jamadagni first. Any specific expectations, recommendations to DOT, TEC, WPC, TSDSI, and BIS for the next generation of standardization? You're already setting the mark for 6G, so I think you would have a lot of inputs on this.
So one of the first things to understand is, why do we do standardization at all? You do standardization, at least companies do standardization. The government support comes in, that is there. But there is primarily, if a company is interested in standardization, there are 2-3 things why we do standardization. One is, if you have a product roadmap, we need to take it to the rest of the world. We have an ambition to take it to the rest of the world. You need to have a defense in place, else you get caught up in lawsuits. You end up paying a hell of a lot of price. Micromax Intex in India, for example, they went down the drains. Just as an example, that is one of the key things why we do standardization, because we want to have standardization patterns, because we have a product roadmap which we want to defend at the end of the day. That is one part of the story. Then there is the other part of the story where we believe that there is money to be made in certain unique services which not other geographies are identifying, but we believe that's what should be in place. Let me give you a couple of examples. 5G rollout has happened in India. 3 years roadmap, crunched it to 6 months, and we've done a lot of roadmap. No money coming in. And there was a press release from the CEO of Ericsson and MWC. It's public information, so I can speak about it. He says 5G money coming in from the 5G deployment is going to take a lot of time. It's going to take some time. Trust me, a lot of time. So where did all the standardization go wrong? I mean, products of standardization go wrong. When we talk of 5G, what was it supposed to deliver? It was supposed to deliver quite a few aspects, service aspects. One was the streaming aspect, broadcast, EMBB, what is called as EMBB. There was also a lot of push to get standardization done urgently for whatever reasons. There is some history to it, but anyway. Now, because of that, you go ahead and design a network which is EMBB centric. That means downlink centric, streaming services centric. Now, after that, this is not sufficient for 5G. Then, as an afterthought, you start pouring in a lot of other services, MMTC, massive, ultra, low latency, slice, splice, all kinds of things, AI thrown in, all kinds of stuff come in. But the heart of the system of a 5G system is still EMBB centric in design. Now, today, when I look at it, damn, where did things go wrong? We should have participated, because for us, it's a lot of Indian money going into the deployments, and what is it bringing in? We question it now, but ideally should have been done much earlier. Now that's where the question comes in. Okay, let's do it for 6G at least. The other part of the story is, why do we do standardization? You can also be a patent troll. If you're one of those small companies who want to make a lot of money, well, that's not the objective here. But that leaves us to 2 things. We want to do standards. We want to be active in standards, dominant position in standards, because we believe there are services which will make money. For example, when we say private networks or enterprise networks, is going to bring in a lot of money from 5G. That is an afterthought. Nobody spoke of that in release 15 or the first day of 5G. Today, your basic EMBB is questioned. So a lot of things are put in. I'm not saying somebody is bad, because we have to go there and participate as well, if that is what our conviction is. And this is precisely where one has to look at standardization as. We believe that India needs XYZ services. And we want to take it into the forum. And we want to take it with force, because that is where the business lies. That is one part of the story. The other part of the story, as far as the product lines are concerned, is you want to participate in a technology early ahead in time, because you want to secure your supply chains. 5G is a new technology. Massive MIMO was a new technology. Nobody in the world had massive MIMO. That gives us an advantage. We are on par with the rest of the world. Now, did we leverage that to talk of the right chipset vendors, bring them on board, make sure that we have the affordable chipsets in place? No, we did not. We went to the global ecosystem, okay, for whatever reasons. I am not criticizing anything here, but then that is an opportunity as well. We get into a technology to be at the forefront, primarily because we want to bring in a supply chain advantage to India, so that we can take that advantage, give it to our guys who make the boxes, and sell it to the rest of the world and make in money. That's the whole objective. And this having said, the impetus will have to, the government can give us a platform, and they have already given a platform. I don't think we can expect anything beyond that. The private entities and the business entities and the guys who believe in services are the ones who have to take the leadership. And for whatever reason, till LTE was launched, the operator involvement was very less. But I can assure you, from Reliance Jio, we will be at the forefront of 6G. We want to make this happen for whatever reasons I mentioned here, because we believe if we are not there at the front and speak out, we lose opportunities. We don't want to be at the end of 6G. We don't want to be in a state where we spend $20 billion, roll out 5G all over the place, and then start questioning where is the money coming back from. Thank you.
Yeah, I think very well said. So it's encouraging to see that the operator believes in the importance of standards for his own business, and is comfortable that DOT, TSDSI, and BIS will help him to achieve what he wants to achieve. So that's very encouraging. Thank you. So over to you, Mr. Arora.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
From Voda Idea.
So before finalizing any standards, it is important that all stakeholders, including TSPs, are involved in the discussions, so that if there are any forcible issues, can be addressed in advance. Secondly, if there are any parallel standards increasing, then it would be better to adopt the already existing standards by getting suitable modification incorporated in those standards. There should be, like, this is a suggestion that there should be a coordination committee headed by DOT, and DOT is very helpful also. By DOT, which should be, have a representation all across the telecom ecosystem. It is also important to have a realistic expectations in terms of outcome, as even China took more than 10 to 15 years to develop its standards. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the last question here. It is about what should be the goals for the next 5 to 10 years and the steps to be taken to achieve these. So we have seen that it's a multi-generation. Can we do something to accelerate? Our minister keeps saying that it should be 1/6 of the standard SEPs should be from India. But when can we achieve that is a big question. So Kumar, you want to go ahead with that?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Thank you. So I think, a goal should be very simply stated. So goal should be, we should be leaders in 6G. Okay. So you can make it more precise, but I don't think focus on studying some ICPs and all is a good way. So leaders in 6G. So what does it take? So Satish lamented on the lack of, application focus. There's constant discussion of we should focus on use cases. So what does that mean? So let me give an example. So use case is to monitor people's health. So I have a device which monitors my ECG and everything else of my health. But what is today the model is the onus is on me, and the device gives me information. That's useless. The information should go to my hospital, and it should go regardless of what network I'm in. So what we really need is the hospital to have an application, like you have an app on your phone, but their app is running on the network, not one network, all networks. and that enables them to monitor their customers, potential patients' health all the time, right? And that's what we need. So that's an application. And when they detect something is wrong, they need to know my location precisely. And that has to happen whether I'm indoor, outdoor, and the network, 5G and Wi-Fi and everything combined should give them this precisely. They need to send an ambulance, and that ambulance has to get quality of service, for people monitoring me on that. Maybe even control the traffic lights and get a free passage. How many times we see ambulances struggling, right? So this is an application that runs on the entire telecom network for the hospital to monitor people's health. So this is a use case, and you can think of similar use cases for other areas, right? To do this, you need standards. What standards do you need? The networks need to provide information in a standard way to these applications. And we are leaders in applications that runs on phones. For example, in the fintech area, we developed universal payments. When COVID struck, we found a way to monitor everybody's proximity. If you're somebody you passed by on the road had COVID, you would get an alarm, right? So now we need to take that expertise, and very good in applications, to write applications on the network for a variety of use cases. So this is really how I see as focus on use cases, develop applications, but these applications don't run on the phone, they run on networks, multiple networks, and whatever standards are needed to enable this is what we should focus on. And we've always thought of standards as building infrastructure equipment, right? Telecom equipment or phones. That was true, and that will still be true in 6G. But I think and this application focus will enable companies here to become OTTs in a different era. Having said that, I think the infrastructure, the phones, and the base stations also need a lot of improvement. One thing that's very disappointing to note is that energy consumption has only gone up in 5G. 4G was up, we were all charging phones. The industry solved the problem by making big fat batteries, 5,000 milliampere hour. The base stations guzzle power in 4G. Only the operators know the impact of the power bills, or the UPS lasts for 1 hour instead of 3 hours. 5G didn't solve this problem, I'm sorry to say, either in the base station side or on the phone side. Your 5G phones are going to guzzle more power than 4G phone, and 5G base stations are going to guzzle even more power. Okay, so I think 6G, if we can set one benchmark, we're going to make energy efficient base stations and energy efficient phones, and the time to start is now, because nothing is defined for 6G. So I think I've answered your question, Pamela.
Yeah.
Goal is leader in 6G, applications, better infrastructure, green, and green phones.
So I hear that there are applications from 80 potential use case labs in the country. They're going to roll out 100 use case labs. So I think we are headed in the right direction. The very fact that all of us are here on the same stage must be giving a lot of comfort and confidence, and of how we are all moving together, we are hand in hand to achieve this goal, right? All the operators are here together, and all the SDOs, and we are all banging on each other. Just to add the inputs from BIS, just 2 sentences I will read from this. Development of Indian standards has to be supported by a system that is capable of responding quickly to the standardization needs of the market and is addressing emerging national priorities. Then they say it is the need of the hour that all SDOs collaborate and share their ideas so that we can utilize each other's expertise and avoid duplicating efforts. I think that's very well stated and very well summarizes what we were trying to achieve today. So with that, I thank the panelists for really setting the stage here, and we move on to the next. We felicitate the panelists. So
thank you, panelists, for a very, very engaging session. And now request Pamela to kindly felicitate the panelists. Ms. Revati first. Dr. Kumar.
Okay, with both of them, or how? You can have a picture with everybody.
Mr. Abdul Qayyum.
Thank you very much.
Mr. D.K. Agarwal. Mr. Satish Chamadagni. And last but not the least, Mr. Sanjeev Rana. Oh, sorry, Mr. Sanjeev Arora, sorry. I'm very sorry for that goof up. And I'd like to request Satish Chamadagni, former Vice Chair TSDSI, to kindly felicitate Pamela, Director General, who's put together this panel discussion at a very short notice.
I hope you can plan that. Not take it on a plane.
Mr. Rajaman, can you come here and join us in this picture? Yeah, the plant is we want to be energy efficient and green in the 6 weeks. Green. Okay, so we will just and we start the next round.
And now we come to the most exciting part of the celebration, the event today, the TSDSI Hall of Fame 2022. So I'll just give a brief introduction to the Hall of Fame. So the TSDSI Hall of Fame Awards was instituted from the year 2019 onwards to felicitate individuals who have contributed to the cause of TSDSI in terms of making outstanding efforts towards or contributions or making accomplishments of technical nature or building the organization or acting as evangelist champions of TSDSI in the ecosystem. These people are recognized as TSDSI fellows and they enter the Hall of Fame. There are 3 categories as of now: the technical, organization building, and champions. The past fellows are listed here. For organization building, the past fellows have been Mr. R.K. Pathak, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, Dr. Kumar Sivarajan. TSDSI champions have been Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, I think that's a repeat. Professor, it should have been Professor Abhay Karandikar, I'm sorry for that. Ms. Aruna Sundarajan. TSDSI fellows for technical excellence have been Dr. Pluto Milleth, Professor Radhakrishna Ganti, and Professor Kiran Kuchi. And now we felicitate the Hall of Fame Awards 2022, the new entrants for this year, for 2022. The first awardee is Mr. Anindya Saha, the Chief Technology Officer at Sankhya Labs. Anindya was nominated by Mr. Pranav Jha, who's not here in the room, but I'll read out a very short nomination, the justification for Anindya, some of his accomplishments. Anindya has been a very active and important participant in different TSDSI activities right from its inception. He's made significant contributions in the TSDSI Technical Deep Dive Conference, making them successful over the years. He's also played a critical role in driving the TTDD conference as member of the Technical Program Committee, as well as chair of different sessions. Anindya has been driving the TSDSI standardization roadmap to bring it into the excellent shape. The roadmap version 2.0 is something that Anindya did very closely. He's been a key contributor to the TSDSI TR 6002 on broadcast offload as a rapporteur of the technical report. The technical report has made a significant milestone in the journey of standardization under TSDSI. It's in the area of broadcast broadband convergence, the next big thing. Anindya is also playing a very important role in TSDSI standardization as a rapporteur of the NIP 226 5G extension to broadcast offload. Anindya makes contributions to several other TSDSI standards, and he's an active participant at 3GPP and ORAN standardization. I'll request Pamela to kindly read the citation and request Mr. Rajaraman to kindly come and give away the award to Anindya.
You can display the citation, no? You can read it from there. Okay, so
maybe displaying the citation.
TSDSI 2022 Technical Excellence TSDSI Fellow Technical Excellence Award to Anindya for pioneering the standards development for broadcast broadband conversion TSDSI, ITU and CGPP, establishing India as a global leader and for shaping the TSDSI standardization roadmap to document. Thank you.
And the next awardee is Mr. Satish Jamadagni for organizational excellence. Satish has been the past vice chair of TSDSI and also the chair of the study group networks. The 5GI journey was a learning curve for TSDSI and its members, and Satish has played a key role in 5GI getting accepted. Satish has continuously engaged with the standards experts in various forums at TSDSI, 3GPP, and ITU to convince them on the technical merits of 5GI, addressing their concerns and win their support over several months. He was also instrumental in securing support from the technology community and policymakers within India through structured deliberations within TSDSI study groups and outreach workshops. Satish has been steering the technical activities of TSDSI on focused topics with clearly defined scopes, including 6G, convergence, cloud interoperability, and roadmap items in his role as a chair of Network Study Group and vice chair of TSDSI. He has also ensured that TSDSI is well plugged into the IMT 2030, the 6G discussions at ITU, and by initiating technical studies on 6G within TSDSI and contributing to the 6G vision at ITU. The conduct of study group meetings has been streamlined under his tenure, and the participation and contribution levels have increased tremendously under his watch. Satish has matured the practice of crystallizing scope of TSDSI technical activities through clearly defined time-bound email discussions mechanisms, and also insisted that technical activities which are not gaining traction should be dropped or suspended. Satish, in his role as Vice Chair TSDSI, helped enroll several technology companies as TSDSI members who are now contributing to standards on a wide range of topics, from core networks to non-terrestrial networks, technologies, etc. As Vice Chair of the Governing Council, Satish took responsibility to resolve and drive consensus on various governance matters. Satish also played a stellar role at 3GPP PCG during 2022 while he was the HOD. I'll request Pamela to kindly read the citation for Satish.
India, could you come to the stage? You have to give some acceptance. Yeah. So the TSDSI Fellow Organization Building 2022 awarded to Satish Jamadagni for establishing strong industry academia collaboration and rallying global support for TSDSI driven contributions for 5G and 6G at 3GPP and ITU, and committed leadership to streamline the technical and governance processes within TSDSI. Yeah, but India can also come, right? We can sit here for a while, and India will give his acceptance to us, and then Satish can give it.
Thank you. So distinguished guests, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks for this award. I think at the outset I should say that I am very grateful and also deeply humbled to receive this. I have lots of people to thank. That is what I would say. I think I would say that this recognition is not just a personal achievement. It is also a validation of the work that we have been doing at Sankhya Labs, which is a company, and definitely, the contribution that we have made. I think the other important thing I would state is that TSDSI has been at the forefront of driving standardization And over a period of time, I have learned a lot from, members in TSDSI. They have helped improve the quality of the contribution. And so those are, some of the important things which have actually also helped me grow and, improve the contribution. I think the other important thing which I found is that this award, is also kind of recognition of the work which a lot of people in my organization have been doing, in the background. I come to the study group meetings and present, but then there's a lot of hard work which goes in behind, all the teams which are there at Sankhya. So this is also, this award actually is also for them, not just for me. So I would like to, thank them for their hard work and dedication that they have put in, towards this. The other important thing I would say is that, behind a lot of this work, I know I would also, say that the previous, people who have got this prestigious award have also inspired me. They have actually set the benchmark, of what TSDSI stands for, what is the benchmark for excellence, and that continuously, continues to inspire me as well as I believe all the fellow awardees as well. And I believe that will also, inspire the future generation of people who are going to contribute. And I should also thank my family for, allowing me to spend time on standardization besides the normal office work. I think that is always is important. They are always a pillar of support. And so in a nutshell, I would say, TSDSI, I'm thankful to TSDSI for, granting this thing. And, as we progress towards doing more things in future, especially 6G, and you heard a lot of stuff which Satish is already driving. I believe that, we are poised to become one of the best SDOs if we increase our volume of contributions. We have to play a very key role, and that is something which keeps us awake. We cannot stop at with just these laurels. We have to go and make our mark. And I think this award actually, I would say, inspires us to do more, inspires me to do more, and hopefully we'll have our mark in 6G. So with that, I'll like to conclude. Thank you.
So very frankly, I don't know what I did to get this award. And when I read the citation, it was, where did you cook it up from? Anyway, so, but I mean, if somebody is giving an award, I will not say no. So obviously. So anyway, the award aside, 6G, we are at a right point where we can make a lot of impact. It's not every time. 5G, we didn't have the luxury. Not that we asked for it, but we ended up being late and we did whatever we had to or could. But that's where the results were. So at least 6G, we have nothing to complain because we are there at the right time. So obviously we have an opportunity to take it to a logical conclusion. And that is where we will strive. And I will be plugged into the system to make this happen. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now invite Mr. K. Rajaraman to kindly give a special address to you.
Madam Pamela Kumar, Mrs. Dr. Sivarajan, and Mr. Agrawal, and all the other distinguished guests at today's TSDSI Hall of Fame award ceremony. First of all, my congratulations to the awardees. I think they have obviously represent a great body of work that has happened in all these organizations. And as Mr. Saha mentioned, a lot of people behind all this, I think a lot of hours of and a lot of years of work which goes into this kind of transformation that can happen. So I would also like to congratulate TSDSI for over the last 9 years in creating this this small body of people who are keenly glued to standards development and standards making, both India and abroad. It's a very, very difficult and tough task. I mean, I think, I mean, for a person who doesn't know much about it, from what I hear and see, I can myself what's safe that a lot of hard work and a lot of very difficult, I mean, I think negotiations go behind eventually getting first of all developing a patent, and finally convincing people that it is standards essential, and then finally enabling it to become part of a standard, and thereafter getting into a product. I think it's like light years away. I mean, I think when in terms of I mean the place where we are in, I think it's very, very tough. I think because obviously having been exposed to a little bit of this as part of the 5GI inclusion in 3GPP release 17, and I can say for sure the difficulties that one faces. I mean, I think it's just not, I mean, to develop a patent appears to be simpler rather than probably bringing into putting into a standard and thereby getting global acceptance and so on and so forth. Very, very difficult tasks. So let me start with one of the points that was made by one of the panelists, that I think Satish made that point that perhaps the standards were, who built the standards and why are we kind of implementing them? Good question. So the question therefore arises, I think this is where probably all of us need to do a fundamental rethink, I think, on the way we are structured and how we do business as a country. Because essentially standards must deliver what we want as a country, right? I think so. So therefore, from a national perspective, as the Prime Minister says, it must meet the national goals. I think whatever we do must actually be concurrent or coherent with the national goals. So if you say, what are our national goals in this particular sector that we are working in? I think it's obviously inclusion. I think unless we are a country which a lot of diversity, both in geography, in terms of the economic classes, and so on and so forth. So any standard that we develop must actually be inclusive in nature, I think. So therefore, while we all work on very niche areas, EMBB, URLLC, and so on and so forth, I think the bottom of the pyramid must always be kept in mind. I think there are many countries which don't have a bottom of the pyramid. I think it's probably not even a pyramid. It's probably a cylinder or whatever, I think, or maybe just a straight line. So therefore, I guess their challenges are very different from ours. So standards must address those challenges, those aspirations and challenges that a nation has. So therefore, while it's easy to say this because standards are global in nature, so I guess that's where the problem lies, essentially. Because the last about 10 days back, while our team was in ITU, I think negotiating as part of the scoping exercise of 6G. So whether the vision of 6G, whether it should be a pentagon, hexagon, or a heptagon, or whatever, So this question arises. So the question as to whether inclusion, I think, or inclusiveness of the technology as one of the cornerstones of this technology requires a lot of effort. Because there are many countries who believe that there is nothing in this, nothing for them. So therefore, coming back to this point, standards therefore have to come from a national agenda. I think has to from a national vision on where we want to go as a country and where we want to take our people to. So therefore, if from that perspective we are able to make standards, it will be more meaningful for us. Of course, meaningfully using existing technology for meeting our ends is one way of doing it. Obviously, that's what we are doing all this while. But I guess when there is an opportunity to make new standards, I think there is also this opportunity to drive our national goals, I think, into this. And let me tell you that there are many countries who are similarly situated, large and small. I think all of them want to be something like how to make communication affordable, how to make it inclusive, how to make it ubiquitous, how to ensure that all corners of the country, be it rural, mountainous, or forested areas or tribal areas, are also covered, have received good coverage and quality of service. How to make, I think the point that you made, I think whether you will make money at the end of the tunnel, I think. So then technologies have also to be frugal, in essential. The other day I was part of this IEEE standards governing body meeting. So Professor Karandikar was sharing on how he's working with one of the IEEE groups in developing a frugal 5G standard. I think I was very taken in by that. So therefore, technology also has to be frugal, because we know Indian jugaad, I think, out of nothing you can make something, I think, or out of less we can make more. So I think that's the science of, of being very frugal, of being efficient in terms of our resources. Because at the end of the day, if you want to be affordable, you have to be frugal, right? I think you have to be efficient in how you deploy capital investments, and how you and frugal in terms of how you are able to maintain networks to high quality of service without spending that that kind of money that many of the Western economies spend. So therefore, these are the major issues that probably has to go into, be kept in the back of the mind while we design. I think so. One of the panelists also mentioned that we still, Dr. Sivarajan, you mentioned that we are still energy guzzlers. So we can't afford it, right? I think as a country, I think if your base stations and your telecom networks spend about 30, 40, 50% of the top line on energy bills, then I think you're dead. I think, because in the long run, I think, because then you'll have this problem of being, how to manage your low ARPU and your high costs. So this is going to be a big challenge. So therefore, there is a inbuilt, I think, incentive for us to actually to make technologies also energy efficient. So forget about the green telecom movement or the climate change movement, etc. There is an inbuilt incentive built. So therefore, if all our technologists who are developing these technologies in our labs can all get kind of, what do you say? We have buy-in from them on these 3, 4, 5. What do you say, non-negotiables, as we call them, I think, from a national perspective, then I think the technology will get built in the way that we want. So therefore, I guess TSDSI has got this great role to play on how to bring people on this common platform of this, or this common minimum agenda of what this country requires. So I guess you're already there in many ways, but I think this movement has to become larger and much more pervasive in terms of its participation and involvement and commitment, as we go by. The second national goal, which has been stated by the Prime Minister, is self-reliance. I think one of the members said, Mr. Agarwal also said that. So unless there is self-reliance built in, I think then therefore, I guess, local development of standards, local product building, it doesn't make any sense at all. I think it is easier to maybe place orders and import them. There has to be market access. Unless you provide market access to people who are startups or small companies, big and small, I think it doesn't make sense actually to do any of these things, because it's at the end of the day waste of money. If I may state so. So therefore, there has to be market access, and especially a large country like us has to provide that market access. So market access has to be provided by the government in one way. I think that's what BSNL and maybe many departments like defense and railways are all doing in some way or the other. But I think it needs to grow bigger. Definitely, I think there is leadership, there is vision, but I think there is more. There needs to be more delivery in terms of the of market access. Because unless there is promise of orders, why would anybody want to build a system? I think nobody wants to burn a hole in the pocket. The other thing which I would like to say, TSDSI also should work with big players like Reliance also. I think and Airtel and Vodafone. You must also buy local. So I think obviously, I'm happy that I think you are building systems yourself nowadays. But I guess there is a long way to go in that as well. I think our domestic industry themselves must have a preference for buying India-built systems. Of course, there has to be the issue of efficiency in terms of costs, performance, and so on and so forth. I don't think that that can be given up if you want to show performance in the marketplace. But definitely, there has to be a drive towards buying more and more of local content, and probably I think in a manner that is efficient as well. So now, as far as the government is concerned, we believe that the route to all this is, number one, as I said, market access. The second is to actually put money on the table for research and development. There is no other way to go. And I think if you need to develop patents, you have to actually take them to become SEPs and then build products out of that. You need to have money on the table in terms of R&D. We have in the last 1 year, I think we have created a number of things. Like for instance, there's this DCIS scheme which is actually providing small grants to early stage companies, I think startups and for developing products. There are a lot of companies which have actually built small products out of that, and we are happy to see that in the 5G era, we have actually a few products which are worthy of actually being considered, even when the technology is getting rolled out. This is something very amazing. In 2G, we were not there. I think 3G, we were just not there, I think. And 4G, I think we were probably 5-6 years late. In 5G, at least we are there when the technology is getting rolled out. In 6G, maybe I think we should be maybe one step ahead, probably offering products when the technology is getting rolled out. So therefore, there is need for more investment in R&D. I think the Department of Telecom, Mr. Marwa is here, I think. So I think MeitY is investing also in research, especially in chips and and other kind of work. When DRDO is doing that, DST is doing that. So I'm sure that all of us need, all the funding agencies need to work together in a very coherent manner. I think in a coordinated fashion, I mean, in a manner that actually doesn't waste resources, but I think coordination is required. I think therefore funding of R&D is a non-negotiable as far as this is concerned. The other thing which I believe is that there is a lot of needs to be a lot of synergy in what we are doing. In fact, India has got a very strong IT what do you say, capability. I mean, I think most of the companies like TCS, I mean, I think we have Tech Mahindra, Infosys, and a lot of big companies, I mean, which have the capability. And we also have a very strong fabless ecosystem, I think, which can design chips. I mean, I think we're very happy to see that one of our companies, Signal Chip, has built an SoC. I mean, I think we must all see that it succeeds. I think people must pick it up and then build products out of that. And that is the kind of endorsement that we need to give to all this small people who actually have the courage to actually come out like this. So we may need to kind of, support in the semiconductor, as part of the semiconductor policy, more such kind of SoCs and ASICs and other chips come out of at least in a fabless manner. I think whether we fabricate it outside the country is a different matter, but at least the design must come out of India, because that assures a lot of things, like say whether it is secure for us, whether it is whether it meets our requirements, etc. Though of course there are things like volume, price, and those kind of stuff, I mean, which I think will play an important role in whether they succeed or not. But nevertheless, I think we must give these people a chance, I think, to succeed. So I'm sure that TSDSI should also get engaged with in how the chip industry in India can also work together in actually building those at least in a fabulous manner. The last few points I have is about the ecosystem as such. I think so. I mean, TSDSI has managed to bring a lot of people together, but I guess the partnership needs to become even more stronger. I think because in the last several year or so, I've been interacting with a lot of the research fraternity. I think research, our institutions, our research institutions, as well as academic institutions, etc. So there are some bits and pieces which are missing. Like for instance, the other day, there was a professor who was working on a very on advanced optical connectors for data centers and all those things. So I was asking him, what are you going to do next? I think so. Therefore, this whole thing seems to developing of patents seem to be, or developing of a product seems to be like a relay race rather than a one-man show. I think it's very large companies can perhaps make it a one-man show, but in a country like India, I think probably it has to be somebody builds something. I think somebody must be ready to take it over and then take it to the next level, build a product prototype and then take it to the market and so on and so forth. So therefore, this collaboration between the academia and industry, academia and research institutions has to become much more intense and much more vibrant for that matter. And to the extent that perhaps there must be flow of personnel also between them. Like for instance, the professor should not mind going and working with Tejas Networks, or maybe a professor, maybe as somebody from the industry moving into a research institution. I think that kind of flow of personnel between these institutions also improves the diversity and probably the intensity of collaboration between institutions. Maybe I think TSDSI should actually work with all these institutions to create that policies that enable that, because we need to have enabling policies at the end of the day. Institutions must have policies which actually promote professors in actually kind of registering patents and building products, etc. I think, of course, there are some IITs and all which have put in place policies. Like we have Dr. Kiran Kuchi, who runs a startup himself. So, there are many institutions which have done that. But I think we need to move to the next level. I think this is not enough. One swallow does not make a summer, right? I think so. Therefore, that way, I think there has to be greater traction in more number of people who actually are facilitated in actually innovating within these institutions. So there has to be participation in standards making bodies. I was happy the other day that when we had this national conference of communication professors in IIT Guwahati, which is it's an annual event. That's what is it? I was surprised to hear that it's the 29th edition of that event, which happened in IIT Guwahati. The next one will happen in IIT Chennai. So I think maybe next time I would prefer that we sponsored a few startups to be there along with equipment, etc. Next time I would believe that the industry must be there present, I think, because this collaboration will actually reduce your own costs of development. If you are able to kind of use the government grants to build that in the government labs and then take it to your to actually harden them and improve them, etc., then probably the costs of development of systems and subsystems will be a lot more less. So therefore, I would believe that these kind of institutions have to be built up. I was happy that TSDSI was present with a whole day standardization workshop. So I guess there is need to be a greater amount of understanding amongst academic fraternity on standards building, on patent, IPR, and probably product building and so on and so forth. So this is just beginning to happen. It's happened in some places, bits and pieces, but I guess maybe in more greater, like for instance, I mean, there was comparison made with China. I mean, in China, I think there are several universities where I think which have become the hubs of where I think all this intellectual property gets generated, and there is very intense collaboration with industry. So therefore, this is probably something we have to learn from them. I think I'm sure that all of us put our heads together. I think this greater intensity of collaboration can happen. The other thing is that we are also facilitating participation of industry, especially the startups, SMEs, etc., in global standards bodies. So even in TSDSI, I believe that maybe we should have greater traction. I think more professors should come and join TSDSI. When somebody builds, I mean, the other day I was talking to some other professor. He was making a presentation on a patent he has filed, but I mean, he didn't seem to have the interest to actually go forward and then say participate in a standards body and see whether he can actually push this into become an SCP. So therefore, how do we bridge this gap of somebody running a part of the race? I mean, I think so. Therefore, I think there are many people who are running like this, bits and pieces. So how do we actually enable the whole? I mean, I think this to lead to synergy that leads to greater economic output in terms of intellectual properties turning into products and solutions. So these are all questions for which I think there are no easy answers. And finally, I would like to say that Madam Shika from CDOT is here. CDOT research institutions like CDOT have to have, I think, in fact, CDOT has turned into facilitators of people of the industry. I mean, I think in terms of helping startups and others to actually build solutions. So rather than themselves, generating intellectual property. So I guess the transformation has to happen. I think that collaboration between research institution and industry has also to become very intense. I think, CDOT has commenced, with a lot of consortia which are made of industry, and I think I'm sure that this will all translate into some products which will hit the market in a faster manner. I think so. Let me also give one example and then end this. I think so. We have launched this Telecom Technology Development Fund. In the past, in 2018, we launched this 5G test bed. I think this was an example in which we funded nearly about 224 crores across about 8 institutions to build products. So we have a lot of learnings from that. I think so. When we do that, I think we have realized that right from the beginning, from conception, I think it's better that the industry and academia join hands while conceiving of a research project. So in which case, what happens is that we'll have at the end of the product a market-ready product, rather than probably a first stage when we have a lab-ready product, and then probably it has to be taken to the industrial shop floor to actually harden it and convert into a carrier-grade product. So then what happens is time is lost, because technology life cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. So therefore, you have to hit the market at the earliest. I think if you want to actually find a value in all the investments that you have made. So therefore, I guess it is time that when all research becomes collaborative in nature and actually much more partnership oriented with the market in focus. If that is the case, I think probably there will be greater value for the in terms of output for the R&D investments that we make. So with these few words, I would once again congratulate TSDSI. So let us hope that maybe in the years to come, you really transform the way research is done in our country and translates into products and solutions. So thank you very much.
So thanks. I think that was very, very encouraging and enlightening. And we are seeing, I think, a huge transformation in, as you saw in Guwahati. I mean, it's the one thing is that now we are hearing in different forums that faculty from different universities are now, everybody wants a test bed. Everybody wants to do something in standards. So that's one step. And I think the startup ecosystem with TCOE and voice and everything is also gaining momentum, and a large part of the credit goes to the far-sightedness starting from DOT itself. So today was a very, very enlightening and very encouraging day, and I think we are going to become leaders in 6G as we have set the goal. So thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody, all the friends of TSDSI who are here on a Friday evening to join us and felicitate our fellows whom we have awarded today. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the end of the technical part of the evening. I would now like to invite all of you to please join us for dinner and maybe mingle and congratulate the awardees, Anindya and Satish, in person. Thank you.